everybody, and welcome to this year's WrestleMania video series, a three-part series that is another one of my wacky, crazy dream card scenarios. For those of you who saw my WWF versus WCW card or my WWF versus NWA dream card, you kind of know what to expect out of this, although this time I went completely off the rails and a little nutty. But before I get into all of that, I do want to talk about a couple of brief things. Number one, on the Kaiju Godzilla / King Kong front. Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire, is coming to theaters this weekend, specifically Friday, March 29th. I will not be seeing it this weekend. I fully intend on seeing it, and I fully intend on reviewing it as part of this channel, but I'm going to be late to the party on it because I will not be able to see it until next weekend. Because this weekend is Easter weekend, and I'm doing a lot of family things and activities and dinners and things like that. And also, my wife's birthday is this Friday, and I don't need to tell you, it is far more important to celebrate my wife's birthday than it is to go see a Godzilla movie. It's like, look. And as I said in a previous video, I'm like, look, I'm so far beyond needing to be there opening weekend at this point. It's like, look, the movie will be in theaters next weekend. It's fine. I'll go see it then. Now, next weekend is also WrestleMania. Will I, skip out on one day of WrestleMania to go see a Godzilla and King Kong movie? Yes. Yes, I absolutely will. Even though I'm kind of stoked for Mania, like, this year. It's kind of like, specifically that one match. Thank God we got The Rock involved in all of this, because he has made the main event scenario for WrestleMania a lot more interesting than it would be otherwise. And it was really highlighted on last week's SmackDown, where, it's got to be Roman and Cody to kind of carry it on their own, and that segment really, really fell flat. Then you watch every time Rock shows up in the segment they just did on Raw this week, it's like, yeah. It's like, Rock's kind of the star of this whole thing. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, can we just have Rock beat Roman for the belt on SmackDown or something, and then just do Cody versus Rock at WrestleMania on night 2? I would be completely okay with that. But anything to get that belt off Roman at this point, I just don't care anymore. But I am very excited for that tag match, because I think Rock has brought a lot of excitement and a lot of energy to WrestleMania this year, and the overall card looks mostly pretty good. So, but yeah, I am probably most likely going to miss one night of WrestleMania to go see Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire. It'll be waiting for me when I get home. I think I'm old enough to where it's like, I don't need to see it live. It'll be there when I get home. I just had my birthday. I'm a crotchety old man now, and it's like, whatever. It'll be waiting for me when I get home. So there's that. But with all of that said, let me just go ahead and dive into this scenario. So like I said, this is going to be another fantasy card thing. I'm calling it Fantasymania, and it's going to be about me creating dream matches for the showcases, the showcase of the Immortals and all of that other fun stuff. So I had a couple of rules in putting together these dream matches. First of all, I ended up, because I wanted to use so many people in the rules that I lined up, I ended up creating 45 matches, which will be, in this fantasy card, will be spread out over 3 events. So that's 3 events, 3 nights, 15 matches each. Overkill. It's absolutely overkill, and I want to preface all of this by saying that with the WWF versus WCW card, I tried to be somewhat practical about it, somewhat. I tried to put some thought into it as far as the storylines and the character interactions and everything else. And my WWF versus NWA card, very much the same thing. I did try to put a lot of thought into the characters and the stories and things like that. With Fantasymania, I kind of threw all that out the window, and it's just like, look, here's just a bunch of matches I would like to see. Some of them are cross-generational, some of them are not. But whatever. I just created a boatload of matches that I personally would enjoy seeing for one reason or another. And it's a wide variety of matches, from work rate, star rating, technical kind of matches, to heavyweight showdowns, to comedy matches, to various title matches and gimmick matches, and all these other things that I cooked up. So like I said, it's 45 matches spread out over 3 shows. And I had some rules in putting these matches together. One, none of the matches could have taken place at a previous WrestleMania. Some of them may have happened at some other show somewhere else, but none of the matches I put on here ever happened at a WrestleMania before. There might be examples of opponents facing up against each other in a different kind of match, like if they faced each other in a singles match at a previous Mania, and I put them in a tag match here, that's how that would work. And additionally, no matches I created for previous Dream Card videos, so my WWF and NWA card and my WWF versus WCW card, can be reused again here. So no Undertaker and Sting, because I already did that in WWF versus WCW. And no Randy Savage versus Terry Funk or Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair or things like that, because I used those for the WWF NWA cards. So any match I created for those previous Dream cards cannot be reused here. It's all new pairings for this particular event. This wildly impractical event that would never work as a real show in any known or understandable way. But again, it's fantasy and it's me just having fun with it. So yeah, no previous matches that I cooked up will be used here. And as far as the wrestlers that I allowed myself to use for this card, I limited myself to only people who have worked at least one match at a WrestleMania main card. So no pre-show or dark matches that happened at WrestleMania, so which disqualified FTR actually. So I couldn't put FTR in the card, and the whole like only WrestleMania performers allowed rule. Like at one point I was toying around with, I'd love to use Harlem Heat. Can't. Stevie Ray never worked WrestleMania. So I worked with only the pool of talent that had ever worked a match on a main card for WrestleMania. And that said, even though I'm using these wrestlers that performed at WrestleMania, I did not limit myself on which version of the wrestlers I could use. So just as an example, Hulk Hogan, obviously on the card, he's one of the biggest icons in WrestleMania history. But if I wanted to use Hollywood Hogan, I could do that. If I wanted to use Real American 80s Hogan, I could do that. If I wanted to use FU New Blood Hogan, I could do that. I could use any version of the particular wrestler that I wanted, which I really took advantage of in one very obvious case. But I made that rule for myself. And I also made the rule that each wrestler could only be used once. So even though I'm spreading these matches out over 3 fantasy nights, 3 fantasy cards, I limited myself to only use a wrestler once each. So once I used him in a match, I couldn't use him again. So none of that like having a tag match on night 1 resulting in a tag match in night 2 or 3 or whatever. None of that happened here. Each wrestler that appears only appears on the card once. So with that introduction out of the way, let me jump into night 1 of Fantasymania. Alright, and night 1 of Fantasymania kicks off with a Cruiserweight exhibition match. The Ultimo Dragon, who did work WrestleMania, he had one match at WrestleMania 20, which was not a glamorous showcase for one of WCW's greatest Cruiserweight champions. Going up against a guy who did have some mild success in the WWE as a Cruiserweight, and that was the Japanese buzzsaw Tajiri. So I'm thinking, you got Tajiri, who's a guy that did have some success in the WWE at a time when they were not very good at utilizing cruiserweights. Tajiri was one of the few that actually made a splash. And Ultimo Dragon, who had a much more successful run in WCW, I thought, okay, let's do another WWF versus WCW match and just do Ultimo Dragon versus Tajiri. Taking advantage of the fact that both of them worked WrestleMania in the past. They were actually in the same Cruiserweight Open match at WrestleMania 20. But I think putting them together in a singles match is a nice action-packed match to kick things off and get the show off going right. And then my opening match for the main card is a showcase for the women, a 10-women tag team match, past versus present. You've got like the past women's wrestlers like the Molly Hollies, Victoria's, Natalia, who's I guess still present. She's just been around for so long that she's stretched across multiple eras, but I'm putting Natalia on this team. The Glamazon Beth Phoenix, and the first woman to enter WrestleMania as the women's champion, Leilani Kai, going up against the new age, the new breed of female wrestling talents, Bianca Belair, Asuka, Io Sky, Kairi Sane, and Alexa Bliss. This was a match that I kind of put together after I made a bunch of other women's matches that you'll see later on this thing, and these were kind of the women that I had left over, and I was like, I'd kind of like to use Molly and Victoria and some of these ones that I have a little bit of a soft spot for, Natalia and Beth. I'd love to use them. And then you've got all these newer talents like the Biancas and the Asukas who are great, and I can't really think of a good place to use them. It's like, yeah, just make a 10-man tag or 10-woman tag, and I do that quite a bit here. I took advantage of a few multi-person matches, which is something I usually speak out against, and here I take full advantage of it on these cards. So don't bother pointing out that I'm a hypocrite. Just keep in mind that I said that this card is wildly impractical. But with these many talents involved, I'm sure you could get a pretty solid 10-woman tag with these very talented women involved in the match. So as far as who goes over, I don't care. But it's like, and that's going to be my answer for a lot of these fantasy matchups. Like, I don't really care who goes over. I just want to see the match because I think it would be a good mix of talents. Our first singles match of the main card is a Battle of the Family Legacies. The Black Heart, the King of Hearts, the Slammy Award-winning Owen Hart taking on Eddie Guerrero. Obviously, this is a match that's a bit emotional because of the unfortunate endings that both men had to their lives and their careers. And the idea of them coming together and having a singles match together is actually a very exciting one because, as we all know, Eddie was a excellent worker, going all the way back to his ECW and WCW days, and he became a big star in WWE. And then you have Owen Hart, who was one of the best workers of the 1990s and didn't always get the credit for it, but amazing worker. And I think the idea of mixing both of them together would make for a really fun singles match. And I would want it to be like heel Owen, like mid-90s heel Owen, and like babyface mid-2000s Eddie Guerrero. And the main reason for that is that you can, even though they are great athletes, you can get a little bit of comedy in there because Owen had a sense of humor that didn't always come out, but when it did, it was welcomed. And Eddie, of course, did his whole light, cheat, and steal thing, which always had people rolling in the floors and laughing. So you do a couple of creative things with that, and I think Owen's reactions would be great, and Eddie would sell that thing like $1 million, and it would be awesome. So the idea of those two having a match together, I think, is a very interesting one and one that I would like to see. All right, and next up is my little tribute to tag team wrestling. A bit of a weird one that I cooked up, but the wild card tag team match where I'm taking members of tag teams that had rivalries with each other and putting them together as partners to face off in this special tag team match. I have Jim the Anvil Neidhart, former member of the Hart Foundation, teaming up with Marty Jannetty, former member of the Rockers, who were, didn't have a full-fledged feud necessarily, but they did work against each other a bit during the golden age of WWF's tag team division. And then, of course, you have Kerry Von Erich, who worked one match at WrestleMania. That was at WrestleMania 7, one of my personal favorite Manias. And the Von Erichs' rivals, the Freebirds, didn't have much of a presence at WrestleMania, except Michael P.S. Hayes did work the Gimmick Battle Royal at WrestleMania 17, so I am utilizing him here. Ideally, the versions of all the men involved would be like their prime versions, and it would be fun to watch these rivals kind of work together and have this wild card tag team match that I view as like a nice little tribute to tag team wrestling. So you got a Von Erich teamed up with a Freebird, which is almost sacrilege to anybody that watched World Class. And you've got the Hart Foundation and the Rockers kind of joined up together, which is, sounds weird and unheard of, but I don't know. I think these two pairings could make for a really fun match, if nothing else. So this is another weird idea that I cooked up. And now I have my first championship match at Fantasymania. Get used to those because there are lots of them. But first championship match is for the unsanctioned $1 Million Championship, one of my favorite title belts in the history of wrestling. I love that thing. I love the design of the thing, and it was a great prop for one of the all-time great heels, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. So when I was putting this card together, I knew I had to come up with an opponent for Ted DiBiase to defend the $1 Million Championship against. And who better than another guy who's also a rich jerk that thinks he can use his money to push people around, but the biggest bully of them all, John Bradshaw Layfield, who I've always viewed as kind of like a... If Ted DiBiase ever got the chance to really get a run with the WWE title, it probably would have been something like JBL's run, and I mean that as a compliment. I'm a big fan of Ted DiBiase, and JBL, I think they got a lot out of that character, and Bradshaw as a performer during his championship run. A lot of people on the internet were very critical of JBL as champion. I loved him as WWE champion. I thought he was great. He was a great heel, and he didn't overstay his welcome. He only had the one run. Granted, it was the longest run in a decade, but he had the one reign, put over Cena, and that was pretty much it. But I think the idea of, Ted works best when he's with a great babyface. And JBL works best when he's with a great babyface. Putting them together, like these two hated jerk rich heels, like what would that dynamic be like? I've said before, the thing with heel versus heel matches is that more often than not, the fans will pick a babyface, whether one is given to them or not. And I think this is another situation where, like, I imagine if they ever put DiBiase and JBL together, like, they would probably start cheering for DiBiase over JBL, which would be super funny to me. But yeah, I would like to see it. It would be for an interesting dynamic. Of course, in this case, I would have DiBiase go over because that's his belt, and I want him to keep that belt. But in any case, this should be a really fun pairing, if nothing else. All right, this is another wacky one I cooked up. Again, these multi-person matches, get used to these because I went a little crazy with some of these. But the Interpromotional Rumble. Now, what this is, it's kind of like a team rumble, like some of the AEW Battle Royals that they've done with like the card suits and the Joker and all that other stuff. There's no Joker in this, but it's kind of like people come out in groups or teams, and it's a team effort to ultimately win the match. And the teams are made up of different promotions and factions that have happened throughout the course of wrestling history. So it's 15 teams total, and here are the ones I cooked up. Team WWF Golden Age with the model Rick Martel, Hillbilly Jim, and Coco Beware. Team WWF Attitude with Val Venus, The Godfather, and Test. Team WWE Ruthless Aggression with Mr. Kennedy, Umaga, and Carlito Caribbean Cool. I never liked that they dropped the Caribbean Cool. I always call him Carlito Caribbean Cool. I thought that was the longer name was better for him, but in any case, Team WCW, Johnny B. Bad, Billy Kidman, and the Z-Man, Tom Zink. Johnny B. Bad has one WrestleMania under his belt as Mark Marrow. Billy Kidman has at least the one. He was in the Cruiserweight Open at 20. And the Z-Man worked the opening match at WrestleMania 3 with Rick Martel as his tag partner. So all of them apply. Team NWO, New World Order. Sorry, no A-listers in this one. It's the B team. Vincent, former Virgil in the WWF. The Disciple, former Brutus the fucking Barber Beefcake in WWF. And Mike Wall Street, who was IRS in the WWF. So other NWO members ended up being in other matches. So this is who represents the NWO in my little stupid rumble that I cooked up. Team ECW, Al Snow, Tommy Dreamer, and the Sandman. Team AWA, Adrian Adonis, Steve Kern, who worked one WrestleMania match as Skinner. And Playboy Buddy Rose, who, according to sources, was the man under the mask as the Executioner in the very first match in WrestleMania history. So yes, Buddy Rose applies to this, and he is on the AWA team because I said so. All right, moving right along, we've got Team TNA, the Pope D'Angelo De Niro, Robert Roode, and the Alpha Male Monty Brown, all of whom have WrestleMania matches under their belt. The Pope and Alpha Male were in the same match, the ECW versus the New Breed match from WrestleMania 23. And then moving right along from there, we have Team ROH, Team Ring of Honor, Samoa Joe, El Generico, who you may know today as Sami Zayn, and Punishment Martinez, who you may know today as Damian Priest. Team NWA, it's actually the modern NWA, Matt Cardona, Aaron Stevens, and Tyrus. Not the most illustrious crew when you think of the NWA, although Matt Cardona has made quite the name for himself. It's this is just what I came up with. Team Territories, which are a few kind of sort of like a miscellaneous of names that I wanted to include but didn't know where else to put them. Billy Jack Haynes, Rugged Ronnie Garvin, and Outlaw Ron Bass. Team New Japan, Shinsuke Nakamura, Junichiro Tenryu, and the Giant Bernard, who you may know as A-Train or Lord Tensai or Albert and the many other names that he's gone under. He had a successful run in New Japan, and I wanted to acknowledge that by including him here. Team Lucha Underground with Prince Puma, who you may know as Ricochet, Jake Strong, the former Jack Swagger, and Chavo Guerrero, who played a role in Lucha Underground. Team AAA, Mystico, who had a run in WWE Sin Cara and did get one WrestleMania match under his belt, I do believe. Aguila, who worked the WWE as S.A. Rios, brought Lita into the company as his manager, but also worked a WrestleMania match as Aguila in a light heavyweight title match against Taka Michinoku, so he applies. And Alberto El Patron, former world heavyweight champion in the WWE as Alberto Del Rio. And finally, Team NXT with Tyson Kidd, Aleister Black, and Wade Barrett. Bad News Barrett, that is. So, 45 people crammed into this thing. It's a lot of names. It's a lot of bodies. But again, I wanted kind of like a multi-generational and also multi-promotional flavor to this match by having all these different teams go in there and try to win for their promotion or their era or whatever. Who would I have go over here? Honestly, I would have Monty Brown be the last one standing, have him pounce somebody. Probably Matt Cardona, because Matt's such a great heel and would be good as like the final one. But have Monty Brown get the win for Team TNA, because Monty Brown is one of the most overlooked, missed opportunities in wrestling history, and TNA dropped the ball with him. So I was like, I'll give Alpha Male his shot here and let him win the Interpromotional Rumble for all that's worth. Next match I have is a bit of a comedy match, but one that I personally would enjoy, and that is the guitar duel, a guitar on a pole match. Jeff Jarrett taking on the Honky Tonk Man. Who is the master of the guitar? I would use the Slapnuts version of Jeff Jarrett from WCW, and of course Honky Tonk. There's only one version of Honky Tonk. But, I also thought about including Elias as like a guest enforcer or a guest referee or something, but really it's like when I think guitars in wrestling, Jeff Jarrett and the Honky Tonk Man are the two that come to mind for me. So I would have Jeff Jarrett win, get the guitar, and crack it over Honky Tonk's head. Or maybe have Honky get the guitar first and then pose and dance with it, and then Jeff Jarrett sneaks it away from him, or brings an illegal second guitar into the ring and cracks Honky over the head with that. I don't know. All these ideas are flushing into me. See what happens when you're creative and you come up with ideas? Like, more ideas just start flowing in there. I'm a regular Vince Russo. And if you think this is the most Russo-rific match I cooked up, wait until you see Night 2. I've got a doozy on that one, but... next up is our first women's singles match for the Queen of the Ring crown. There are two women in WrestleMania's history who have gone by the name Queen. Well, there's more than two, but two that stand out to me. The sensational Queen Sherri, who had one WrestleMania match, the mixed tag at WrestleMania 6, and Charlotte Flair, who's one of the biggest wrestling stars today. So let's have a great veteran like Sherri Martel work with a legacy performer like Charlotte Flair, and let's have a great match out of it, and a great showcase for Sherri Martel, who I'm very partial towards, and I always enjoyed as a talent. So I would definitely have her go over in my total, trippy mindfuck dream card scenario. But this would be a really interesting match for me. And I always felt like Sherri, it would have been nice if she had like one really cool standout match at WrestleMania. And the closest she got was the mixed tag, which was fun, but it wasn't the best showcase for her. Next up, ECW is going to be represented on this card with the Ultimate ECW Championship, a three-way dance, which ECW kind of made famous, the triple threats, the three-way dances. Something that, it was a type of match that they kind of popularized. And as far as who got to be in this match, I picked three icons of ECW. I could have gone with Sandman, could have gone with Tommy Dreamer. There's a few guys I could have gone with, but I went for, the most primal and animalistic guys I could think of, like Rhino, the last man to hold the original version of the ECW Championship, Sabu, the homicidal, genocidal, suicidal madman, and Taz, who obviously had his best run in ECW. I would have included Shane Douglas in this because I think he was one of the best ECW champions, but Shane never worked at WrestleMania, so I couldn't use him for this card. But I think this is like this is a match I cooked up as kind of like a final farewell to ECW. And don't worry, I do have a similar match cooked up for WCW, which we'll be seeing in nights 2 or 3. I don't remember which one I put it on. But yeah, this is kind of just, let's just have a good old-fashioned fun ECW style title match on this card. Next up is a very un-ECW type of match, and one that I'm sure most smart marks would not enjoy, but one that intrigues me. The Battle of the Warriors. Goldberg versus the Ultimate Warrior. What on earth would this match look like? Because in a weird way, they kind of parallel each other in terms of how they worked and how they got over in the business, and they're the biggest wins of their careers and their big championship wins both came over Hulk Hogan. So there's some odd parallels between the two, and in wanting to have like a big heavyweight fight on this card, I thought, man, Goldberg and the Warrior, that's such a weird pairing. I mean, I know the match wouldn't go long, we know that, but the level of no-selling and the level of like intensity that these two could bring, you could probably create a short but good kind of wacky match from these two. I hear this match, I think Goldberg goes over, but it's an interesting pairing that nobody thinks about, and there's probably a good reason why nobody thinks about it. But again, fantasy. This is all me coming up with ideas, and just no matter how impractical they are, and I'm like, you know what? Even if the match turned out to be a train wreck, I would kind of want to see it just to see what it would look like to have those two in the ring together. So that was one I cooked up. Next up is the Ultimate Hardcore Championship No Holds Barred match. So I wanted to have the Hardcore title, and there's a lot of like former titles and defunct titles that will pop up on these dream cards, so be on the lookout for those. But with the Hardcore title, I wanted kind of a generational battle between two hardcore wrestlers. So obviously I went with Terry Funk, who's like the king of hardcore, the originator of hardcore, the grandfather of hardcore. Going up against kind of the modern day hardcore guy, which is, Kevin Owens. Not that he's always in bloodbaths or anything like that, but he's a hard-nosed brawler that does well in no-holds-barred style situations, going all the way back to his Ring of Honor days and carrying that over to WWE. Even in a PG product, you can always count on Owens having some of the better no DQ matches out there. So, you know what? Hardcore title, Owens versus Funk. Let's make that match happen. I think they could have a really nice, fun, stiff, brutal match together. So that would be one I would enjoy seeing. And we go from hardcore action to pure technical bliss, as I cooked up this 2 out of 3 falls match, the Battle of the Dragons. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus the American Dragon Bryan Danielson. When it comes to technical prowess, I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody from the 1980s that's better than Ricky Steamboat, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a babyface that's better than Ricky Steamboat. And in the modern age, like, Bryan Danielson is one of the better technical guys out there today, and has been for quite a while. Obviously, if you have Danielson as the heel and Steamboat as his usual lovable, beloved babyface self, this could create a very nice technical match that has a little bit of that traditional heel-face dynamic that I look for in professional wrestling, while also enjoying the pretty moves that these two could do together. So I think Steamboat and Danielson, Steamboat in his prime, working with a prime Danielson, I think could yield some excellent results. And this is kind of my concession to the star ratings guys out there by putting this match on the dream card. Next up is more spectacle, more flood, maybe also a little hardcore. The Flag Boot Camp match, Team USA, and I loaded Team USA with the ultimate all-American good guys. So obviously John Cena has to be on there. He's basically Captain America in cargo shorts. So John Cena, Sergeant Slaughter, who was the lord of the boot camp matches during the 1980s, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who was the ultimate devoted patriot all-American, and Mr. USA, Tony Atlas, who did have one match at WrestleMania. He was in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2, so it allowed me to use him. Sorry about that. Shucked my desk. But then on the other side, I had to cook up a team of evil foreigners that hate America. I thought about putting Ludwig Borga on here, but I can't use him because he never worked at WrestleMania, and that's probably a thank God situation. But when you look at wrestling in the 1980s, like, there's no shortage of evil foreigner heels. So I put in the Iron Sheik, who's probably the most famous of the bunch, Nikolai Volkov, who's probably the second most famous of the bunch, at least from that era, and Sheik's former tag team partner, and another one of Volkov's tag team partners, Boris Zukov. They worked together as the Bolsheviks. Even had a match at WrestleMania 6 that did not go very well for them, but he did work at WrestleMania. And mixing them with the more new age or more modern anti-American character, the Bulgarian brute Rusev, who did have that memorable match with John Cena at WrestleMania 31, and that memorable entrance that he had at WrestleMania 31. Yeah, this could be fun, and I wouldn't work it in the way that the Cena-Rusev flag match worked out, because that match was way too drawn out and way too long and didn't need to be that. But like I said, I'm kind of envisioning this match as kind of a mix between like some of Slaughter's and Sheik's matches, or maybe a little bit of the Desert Storm matches between Slaughter and Hogan from '91, things like that. So it's kind of like total chaos. No tagging here. Like, tagging would be a waste of time in a match like this, and just let them have their bloody battle with Cena, Sarge, Duggan, and Atlas standing up for USA and ultimately getting the win. The ultimate flag match, the ultimate Patriot match, which was, again, matches like this were a staple of wrestling back in the 80s. So this is me kind of paying tribute to that by doing this match. Next up is the biggest singles match on night one, and that is a mix between two of the greatest stars of all time. One of my all-time personal favorites in the Icon Sting, who just recently retired, had one WrestleMania match under his belt, so I could use him for this card. And The Rock, a legend of the WWE, WWF, whatever you want to call it, and one of the biggest stars of all time. And, you know, you think of The Rock as the people's champion and one of the most exciting stars to ever do it. And then you think of Sting, who is an icon of WCW. And that's the thing, like, Rock is purely a WWE guy. And Sting is purely an outside WWE guy, minus the brief run he had in WWE where they didn't use him properly, and we were all disappointed with that. Sting is like the ultimate anti-WWE guy, and Rock is like the ultimate pro-WWE guy. So mixing the two together would create like a dream match that we never envisioned would ever happen, because a lot of us couldn't even picture Sting in the WWE to begin with. And there are many other dream matches that Sting could have had. Obviously, Sting versus Taker is the big one, but like I said, I couldn't use it because I used it for the WWF versus WCW card. And yeah, the Rock Sting pairing intrigues me. So yeah, I put it on here. It's like, I would like to see those two go at it, because Rock is such an exciting talent, and in his prime, you know, Sting was one of the most dynamic and exciting performers out there. So I think you mix the two together, it can make some magic. But maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part. But again, it's my own fantasy card, and it's all about creating the scenarios I want to see. So, main event tonight one is going to be a War Games match. The 4-on-4 battleground with blood, guts, violence, and everything else you could ever want out of a major cage match. So, when you think of War Games, I think of the Four Horsemen. So I put the Four Horsemen together, all four of whom had previous WrestleMania matches. Ric Flair, of course, famously worked WrestleMania 8 and 24, and among other matches, but those are his two biggest. Arn Anderson worked as a member of the Brainbusters at WrestleMania 5, as did his tag team partner Tully Blanchard. And Barry Windham worked the very first WrestleMania. And by the way, the version of the Horsemen I'm using is the best version of the Horsemen, where it's Flair, Arn, Tully, and Barry Windham. And but Barry has a few WrestleMania matches under his belt, so I could put the Four Horsemen, the best version of the Four Horsemen, together in a War Games match at my own fantasy WrestleMania card. So that's pretty cool. Who do they go up against? Well, Evolution. Now, I know Ric Flair was a big part of Evolution, so I can't use him in this match on the Evolution team, because I already have him on the Four Horsemen side. So, Evolution will be made up of Triple H, Randy Orton, Batista, the founding members, and Seth Rollins, who joined up with Triple H the night after the new run for Evolution disbanded when Batista left. So, like, Seth Rollins is kind of a proxy member of Evolution, kind of, sort of. So I'm kind of using that justification as a way to work him into the Evolution team for this. And, Seth Rollins in a War Games match could probably do some pretty special things. And, yeah, Four Horsemen versus Evolution, that could be pretty cool. And hey, using Seth Rollins in this, I mean, that's better than using Mark Jindrak. I think we can all agree on that, right? Okay, so I justified my decision on that. Of course, I would have the Horsemen go over because they're the kings of war games, and that would be my call. So you'd have night one of a fantasy WrestleMania card ending with the Four Horsemen, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and Barry Windham standing tall after being victorious in war games, because it's my dream card and I'm doing what I want with it. So that concludes part one of this dream card series. Parts 2 and 3 you'll be seeing a little bit later. I filmed everything in one day, so everything's ready to go and will be posted. So you'll be seeing it. All of it before WrestleMania. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you all later.